Art is easy. You are just doing it wrong. Toil is glorified among artists, and most of us can understand why. It is a common belief that struggle is the only sure indicator of growth, but what if I told you you're struggling too much? Art should not feel unspeakably dreadful, and yet it does for so many people. Why does it seem so much easier for others? Why does my work take 20 hours instead of 2? Why can't I bring myself to finish anything? And when does it get fun? These questions are unfortunately horrifically taboo to ask, and that's the reason I wasted years of my journey experiencing unnecessary stress and insecurity. I'm not here to tell you to stop comparing yourself. I'm here to help you through legitimate problems I've had the displeasure of solving all on my own. Let's kick things off with an example. Have you ever tried to draw with your non-dominant hand? How did that go? Pretty bad, right? Now, did it ruin your life, or did you laugh? Because it was funny. It's obvious that limitations affect our performance, and although tempting, it's entirely unfair to hold yourself to the same standard in every situation you find yourself in. There are lots of ways artists end up working against themselves, not by intention, but by nature of the pursuit. Art is complex. Art is time-consuming. Art is not difficult. It can be difficult, only if you do it wrong. This may contradict everything you've ever known, but please, let me cook. Art is a sandbox, so much so that our journey often conforms closely to our specific ideas and interests. Quite literally anything can be drawn into existence, and that power comes with great responsibility, especially in the absence of any sort of formal guidance. From day one, you're practically in the dark. It can be beyond frustrating when you're impossibly stuck with no idea of how to improve. It could be anything, and all anything means is I don't know. So often we assure ourselves that this pain will be worth it, but sometimes it just isn't. With so much freedom, it is remarkably easy to waste time, no matter how hard you're trying not to. There is never one way to do anything. Like it or not, we have options, and it's our job to figure out what to do. Some decisions are as simple as a preference for crunchy over creamy peanut butter, but with arts, it's not so clear-cut. The way we tend to create order in chaos is most often effective, but inefficient. With enough effort, you can push a pull door, but that doesn't change the fact that you're a dumbass for trying. It's easy to assume that all time spent towards honing a craft is meaningful, but that's not necessarily true. The definitions of work and torture have one subtle difference, and that's outcome. Even if you've expended every bit of your energy towards something, you cannot consider your efforts productive unless you've received something in return. No matter how much you endure, the proof is in the pudding. Learning followed by consistent application results in improvement. And the definition of learning does not include the words blood sacrifice. Putting yourself through hell won't improve your art. Intention will. Suffering is not rewarded. It exists to tell you something is wrong. Allow me to ask you a question. To all my perfectionists out there, do you study? Do you give yourself the safe and forgiving space necessary for a human being to undergo the learning process? Do you allow yourself to make mistakes freely? Or do you hop from painting to painting, emotionally punishing yourself for not learning fast enough? Say I asked you to draw a cow from memory. I'm sure one of you freaks have studied the anatomy of bovines, but chances are the majority of us will suck at it. This may or may not faze you, but my point is, success in art requires a lot of intention. Us Homo sapiens are born bad at virtually everything, and here I would like to emphasize that this is not a moral failing. You'll never catch me shaming a kitten for tripping on air or a toddler for not knowing how to spell. Same goes for a questionable recreation of a cow. Sure, if you care about results, your incompetence will make you suffer, but the only way around it is not only practice, but intentional learning. You cannot brute force your way to proficiency through repetition. Without learning, you're only getting better at doing a bad job. If you're practicing consistently without studying, you're not improving. You're mastering your mistakes. The token piece of advice every artist gives is to just practice, but this story is incomplete. You must practice what you have learned, not what you have habitualized. Remain unaware of this fact, and you'll easily start equating difficulty with improvement and suffering with productivity. A lot of us feel as if our pain entitles us to success, but the truth is, pain is utterly unproductive. This concept can manifest in a few different ways, and it took me a long time to recognize these connections. Number one, your art takes an insanely long time to complete. If your paintings take 10 gazillion years to finish, I do regret to inform you that you're not particularly dedicated. You're just inefficient. I'm not talking the interior of the Sistine Chapel. I'm talking half body of your DeviantArt furry OC in a bunny suit. Rendering does take time, but re-rendering is infinitely worse. For example, this painting took longer than the entire runtime of the anime series One Piece when played in rapid succession. Not once, not twice, but 8.5 times. Detail does not take that long. Inexperience does. If I knew what I was doing, I would have been able to get things right the first time. This is what happens when you become monomaniacally obsessed with completion and nothing else. The finished product is nice, but it is only an outcome at the end of the day. One question I'd like you to ask yourself is, do you want to be good at making art? Or do you want to make pretty pictures? Proficiency is not only determined by an outcome, but also the activity itself. Not only what you make, but how you make it. An artist is someone who makes art. Making being a verb. Being good at the art and not the making is just another way to say you've discarded yourself for the sake of mediocre results. Suffering is not the competitive edge you think it is. Suffering is unproductive. Number 2, you rarely finish your drawings. In my experience, I only quit drawings not out of laziness, but out of frustration. There's nothing I love more than the feeling of completion, so I believe this is the subconscious refusal to accept and address a skill issue. We all have limitations, regardless of public or personal opinion. Humans cannot survive the vacuum of space, and most of us do not know how to draw hands. Most flaws are only shameful in context. Not being able to read makes sense if you're a newborn, but not when you're 23. These situations are only interpreted as good or bad based on their personal implications or the assumptions they arouse from others, and in turn, ourselves. An adult who can't read must be lazy, undisciplined, and pea-brained, one of which is fact. The rest being pure assumption. Shame haunts us all in one way or another. Sometimes studying is hard simply because it's difficult to admit when we don't know something we feel as if we should know. The worst part is, the humiliation compounds upon itself the longer you avoid it. Once 23 turns into 24, it becomes increasingly evident that time waits for no one. And you still don't know how to read! The fact of the matter is, you cannot change something you refuse to accept. Understand that your true opposition is not the unfairness of the world, but your own ego. Let's clarify. I suck at perspective because I have not studied it, not because I'm lazy, incompetent, or stupid. Where did that even come from? Number 3, drawing feels painful and unsatisfying. Sometimes drawing feels good, and sometimes it does not. Folks, it is no surprise that being bad at things does not feel very nice. When art starts feeling like a medieval torture device, you'll know it's time to study. Art block is widely believed to be caused by a skill discrepancy between your ability to spot and correct mistakes. So naturally, the solution is to sharpen your technical skills. How do you do that? Take in new information and practice it, I promise. Becoming an art god is not a secret power sealed within you. It is an external, extracurricular activity. Just like strength training, you can starve, maintain, or build upon your gains dependent on the amount of protein you offer them. Simply eating more won't do anything for you. No one expects a student to succeed without being taught, and no one should expect an artist to succeed untrained. An art piece is just like an exam. Certain fundamentals can be expressed through modules you must study to fully understand. We all know that winging it, although tempting, only results in a failing grade. Education and execution are separated for a reason. The learning process is capitalized by error. That's why it isn't graded. The more you practice, the more you're able to minimize mistakes. Only then is the pressure of a finished product appropriate. Otherwise, you're just being unfair. Constantly working against myself towards impossible standards has stunted my growth tremendously, and it's something that continues to piss me off to this day, albeit harsh. I sincerely hope this message was able to get through to you. Thanks for watching, and have a lovely day.